Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 80 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I am your host tonight, Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict, back here again. It's been a little while. It feels like it's been forever, Scott, since I've seen you. Well, besides seeing you last night, doing our normal hour and a half thing on Timeline. But how you doing, Scott?
It was absolutely fun taking over Timeline and making it as long as possible since we knew you guys had to record after. So that was a great time. And I did see you on Dynasty Game Night, I think. I did that with you.
Yes.
More currently than I did this show with you. So that's even crazier. We're just like on other podcasts at this point. So, yeah, man, I mean, I'm used to arguing with Andrew, but the good news is, as always, the rule of thumb is whichever co-host isn't here is the one we blame for all the mistakes. So Andrew takes
that's why we started late, because it's all Andrew's fault somehow. Not because I caused us to start late or anything like that. But yeah, it's been I was off a couple weeks, scheduling issues, and I'm very happy to be back here with you. Also, kind of happy the season is over. I love the point scoring season more than I think most of the Dynasty people. I hear a lot of people, like you're shaking your head. People who are listening
hate lineups.
I love scoring points, though. I hate setting 35 lineups, but I love scoring points. So I do enjoy it more than. I've said this on other podcasts. For podcasting, I love the non-point scoring season. It's way more fun to podcast than, but for actually being a player, yes. I like scoring points and I like winning championships. So, but let's get to our guest. We got again, like Scott said before we came on the show, it's like we're doing the Dynasty Rewind series here.
Yeah,
I got another
comment, baby.
Yeah, a bunch of great guys over there. If you're not listening to them already, you should be. But Scott's got his Dynasty Rewind shirt on there, hoodie, whatever it is. But yeah, we got Nate Christian this week from Dynasty Rewind at Nate NFL. So Nate, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty great. I'm excited to be here, make my debut in the Junkies. I'm the total opposite of you, Rocky, man. I'm down with Scott. I do not like setting lineups. If all my dynasty leagues could be best ball, that'd be great. I'm a team builder. I do not want to set lineups.
Yeah, I think I'm in the minority. I think most dynasty players love doing the off-season stuff, and then the season's just like an annoyance or something.
Yeah, I'm all about rookies. Honestly, I don't even really like fantasy football. I just love scouting. I just love scouting rookies. I used to scout rookies when I was in college before I even knew what dynasty fantasy football was, just for the hell of it. And I would post on Reddit and stuff. And then I found out about Dynasty Fans Football. I was like, well, at least there's something tangible I can do with scouting rookies. So I have one best ball Dynasty league. It's great. I need to figure out how to move my other leagues over there.
Got to join more, man. Love them. I love them. I just joined one, actually, a startup. Love it.
Okay, so I guess we'll get right into it then. Just real quick off the top, I figured, we should probably touch on the one bit of news that happens this time of year, which is all the coach firings that have come down. We had 6 this week. I'm just going to run through them all real fast, and then we can just kind of pick out maybe a few points you want to talk about. But Vic Fangio got fired before everybody else, right after the Broncos game last week. And then Matt Nagy, of course. I'm sure Scott will have something to say about that one. Mike Zimmer, Joe Judge from the Giants. The big surprise one, Brian Flores from the Dolphins. I think everybody was not, kind of surprised by that one. And then David Culley today with Houston. I've heard some rumblings that maybe they fired him because Flores was available, but I guess in terms of fantasy takeaways, I don't know if there's a ton. There's definitely one obvious one that sticks out to me, but I think from an overarching perspective, one of the things, especially from the 3, I guess would be Chicago, Minnesota, and New York, where the GMs also got fired, is that if you're not a star, I kind of worry about those guys going into the offseason. Like, for instance, a David Montgomery, maybe the next GM and coach don't want to give a guy 90% of the snaps, especially when you have a Khalil Herbert or something like that. So that's one takeaway I have. But what do you think, Nate? Is there any specific coaching hire, coaching firing, or anything here that you think there's a fantasy/dynasty takeaway from?
Yeah, I think for me, actually, the biggest one is probably the Vic Fangio firing, because I think the Broncos, we've been talking about it the whole last offseason, how the Broncos were set up for some quarterback to come in and just light it up. I mean, they got Jerry Judy, they got Tim Patrick coming back, they got Cortland Sutton coming back, they have Noah Fant, they have Javonte Williams now. I mean, they're loaded on the offense, and Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater just can't get it done. And I don't know if Vic Fangio was not doing a great job of, targeting free agents and recruiting free agents, or if he had something to do with, he wanted Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Whatever it is, I think now if the Broncos are looking to go get Aaron Rodgers, John Elway can go up to Aaron Rodgers and be like, hey, what coach do you want? He can sell the team to Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or whoever he wants to by saying, you get to pick the coach, man. This is like LeBron James in the NBA. You get LeBron James, then you get your coach. The Broncos are set up. They just need a quarterback. They go get a quarterback, and then they get a coach. I think that one could be huge.
Do you guys think that Rodgers is leaving? Because you're starting to hear stuff coming out that maybe he does just end up staying there now with how well the season's gone and all that.
Yeah, it's just leverage. Leverage.
You think he's leaving still too, Nate?
I don't know. I definitely feel like it's a lot more likely he stays now than it was before. Yeah. I still, kind of see him leaving, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed at this point.
And Scott, I need to hear your take on Pace and Nagy.
I mean, honestly, it does not matter. It does not matter. It's great that they're gone because they're terrible, but at the same time, it's the same organization. They're going to continue to make the same mistakes that they do over and over again. Ted Phillips still oversees the operations. He's awful. The kids that run the organization, they don't care about the team. So until the queen dies off, then they can sell the team to somebody who cares. Nothing's going to change. They're still going to be cheap. They're still going to have shitty facilities. They're still going to be fighting with the city over stadium stuff. There's going to be all sorts of distractions and stuff with that. They have a terrible process. They're talking about just old, like Bill Polian. Like, I love the guy. It's like one of the architects of the, NFL. He's incredible. Love his mind and his knowledge and what he's done. But like, look at who he's consulted with and helped hire over the years. It's old guys. Like, we're done with these. Vic Fangio, he's gone. Bye. Because he's old and he's clueless on all the, ways to do things. And so, listen, it doesn't matter unless there's a Ron Rivera type situation where someone like Ron Rivera comes in and says, listen, if you want me to coach at this organization, you are going to have to change everything. And, there's just nobody out there like that right now. Can you have guys that change the culture a little bit? Like a Brian Flores could come in and maybe change the culture. I mean, I don't know, because what happened in Miami? I mean, the guy actually did okay, and then he got fired. So I don't know. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. If your organization's terrible, they're going to continue to make the same mistakes. So while it's exciting that they're gone, knowing that like one of the worst play callers I've ever seen, other than John Shoop, if anybody remembers that name, it doesn't matter. And now there's questions that, like you said, Rocky, what happens with Fields? What happens with Monty? A-Rob is long gone because they completely screwed him. So who does that leave? That leaves 170-pound Darnell Mooney. So, I mean, what are they going to do? Who's going to sign there? Oh, there's all these free agents. Well, that's great. I'm not signing there if I'm a free agent. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know what they do. I almost don't care because it probably won't matter at the end of the day.
I actually, one of the thing I said that I thought was kind of an obvious takeaway was I was referring to, I figured this had to be good for Fields. So do you disagree with that then? It doesn't matter?
No, I think it is good for Fields.
Okay.
I think it is. It can't be worse. I mean,
that's the thinking. Unless
he
Adam
built
Gase is the new
offense. He built an offense not around Trubisky, and Trubisky failed. And then he built an offense not around Fields. I mean, it's literally he built his offense for like Andy Dalton, and then he put Fields in
and he
there.
had 2 mobile quarterbacks the entire time he was there.
It's mind blowing how terrible he was at game planning and play calling. So yes, it likely will only get better, but just because it can't get worse.
And as Toronto Dave said in the chat, so how do you really feel about the Bears, Scott?
I'm giving away my season tickets next year.
Their own team as much as Scott does.
Already giving away my season tickets next year. I'm not. I can't do it.
Okay. Another thing I'd heard today somewhere was that, like I mentioned, the Houston Flores thing, and this conspiracy theory that maybe they can get Watson to stay because supposedly the reason he wanted to go to Miami was because of Flores. Do you think there's any chance of that happening, Nate?
Absolutely no chance. I think the whole lawsuit and everything, it's so linked to the Texans ownership, because the lawyer for the women are like the lawyer who's like best friends with like the ownership. It's just all ridiculous. And, no matter what side is correct, the ownership in Watson just seems so divided. I don't see any way Watson stays. If he stays, I feel like they've got something on him and they're something fishy, because it just doesn't make sense. If he's able to go somewhere else, he's got to go somewhere else. I mean, it's just too far.
I don't think you sit out a whole season and just because they bring some coach in that you're gonna stay there.
No.
Okay, I guess unless you guys have anything else on the coaching stuff, we'll move on from that.
No, just the last thing I'll mention real quick is we talk about all the head coaches, but remember, offensive coordinators is what we care about. And so if they bring in an offensive head coach, then we care. But there's also Carolina out there and Detroit firing Anthony Lynn for, again, apparently no reason that I could find. But it is what
Campbell
it is.
Had taken over the
so after week 8. So what I need to research is the splits, first 8 games versus last 9 games, and kind of see how that affects things. But we have to assume that he'll call plays going forward unless he brings in a big name, but he's already done that with Anthony Lynn. So I'm guessing he won't. He'll probably promote from within and he'll continue calling the plays. So those last 9 games, I'm really going to break down then and look at, what do we have going forward. And then Carolina is going to be interesting too. Like, who do they bring in? I mean, there was not a bigger name than Joe Brady, right? Like, I mean, coming off that LSU season and all that, and then now this guy's just gone. Like, what?
Supposed to be the next Sean McVay.
Yeah,
mind blowing. I don't understand, but hey, it is what it is. But pay attention to OCs too.
And now that you mentioned that, I believe wasn't Greg Roman also let go in Baltimore?
No,
I don't believe he's been let go.
Okay, I thought I heard that. Maybe it's just a rumor.
Calling for him to be let go, which maybe is a little ridiculous.
I thought I had seen that, but maybe it was just a rumor.
Oh no, yeah, I have not seen that. That would not be ideal, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. But if he hasn't been let go, then just ignore what I said, and we'll edit that part out. I'm going to edit. I've learned from the foot of the master. I don't edit.
That's right.
Okay, so what we're going to go to next, our next segment is kind of last week. Scott and Andrew had kind of taking a look back on the 21 season in sort of a macro sense, and we're going to do something sort of similar, but more of a micro sense, get into some specific players that kind of popped at the end of the year. Some of these guys actually have popped more than the end of the year, but I threw them on there anyway, because what I did was I looked at guys who had the best last 4 weeks from 14 to 17, your kind of most important weeks of the season. And some of those are guys that came out of nowhere. Some of them are guys that had been doing stuff before then too, but I wanted to talk about them. So we're going to do that. And then also look ahead a little bit and kind of see where we're at on them, what we think is going to, what we expect going forward. We're buying, selling, all that kind of good stuff. So I wanted to start with the running backs because I wanted to get them out of the way because I think the easy answer is to say sell running backs because I know that's what Scott's going to say, especially these running backs. But I do think there's a story you can tell on some of these guys that maybe they have value going forward. But I'll just go through all 3 and then we can kind of talk about each one. Of course, there's Rashad Penny. who was the RB1 over those 4 weeks, including 3 of the 4 weeks, 130 plus rushing yards. Yeah, it was nuts. And then Devin Singletary, the RB3 over those 4 weeks, and again producing pretty consistently. And then Sony Michel was the RB7 over that time, and maybe not quite as big of a producer for you as the other two, but he definitely had his best 2 weeks those last 2 weeks of the season. So I think Sony is probably and two of these guys are free agents. Singletary's still with Buffalo, but Sony and Penny are free agents, both from that same class a few years back. So Nate, I guess Sony is. I think that's the easy one. I don't even think he's a sell though. He's not a guy I expect a lot going forward. I don't think he's necessarily, with Akers coming back, going to be with the Rams. But what are your thoughts on what Sony did at the end of the year? And do you see him having value in 2022?
Not really. I don't really feel like Sony is going to pop up in any consistent place. He's probably going to get a similar role to this year, where he's going to just kind of sit in the background until there's an injury. Not a guy that I'm going to be trying to buy. I mean, it's like you said, these guys, it's easy to say sell, but you can't always get top dollar for these guys because everyone else is trying to sell these guys usually. So with Sony, personally, I am either holding or selling. If I can sell for, I sold him earlier this year for a 3rd round draft pick. Once Henderson went down and he had a good game, I sold him for a 3rd rounder. Not a huge haul, but in that league, I'm going to rebuild. So better than nothing.
Yeah, and I think I think of the three, he's the easiest sell. He's the one I have the least confidence in going forward. Not that I feel super confident about any of these three guys, but I just think I don't think he's going to stay with the Rams, and he could be he's going to be committee back and potentially a worse offense. So Scott, I'm not going to ask you about Sony. I'm going to ask you about Penny, which
why bother? My answer is the same for all of them. I have a far more interesting question, and it's for Nate. And it's Nate, when because you're a rookie guy, you're a prospect guy, these. Your process now. These guys were in the same draft class. You analyzed them coming out. You had opinions on them as rookies. Okay, so now, with them being free agents, now they're going to go somewhere else. Are you leaning back at all on when they came out? And are you saying, you know what, I really like Sony Michel coming out, and so I'm more likely to hold him because I still think there's potential for him to be something? Or are you just saying, you know what, we're 4 years out. It's at this point, it is what it is. We've seen him in the NFL, and that's kind of thrown out the window.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I do take my initial prospect profiles on these players throughout the rest of their career, because they do improve and they get worse sometimes, but they always have the same style of play usually. And I think one thing that you have to do is you have to look at what they came in and then see how it's gone, and then have that full context, because that stuff still matters. I still like taking a chance on a player like Donovan Peoples-Jones because he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Those guys still, take a chance on Malcolm Brown the same way. But in this case with Sony, I think the athleticism is really just dropped out from where he came in as a prospect. I just don't think he has it all anymore. I think the knee injuries have got to him. Yep. And I think if I didn't have that issue with him, I think I'd probably be a bit higher on, maybe looking to keep him in a couple leagues, or, throw a late round pick to grab him. But for me, looking at Sony, just not there. I think, Penny's similar issue. He's had a lot of injuries, but for Penny, I'm actually a little bit higher on. I think, Penny's, he's got, he has had more injuries than Michel. He's missed a ton of time most of his career, but he looks so explosive over these past couple of games. I feel like the athleticism, he hasn't lost as much of it as I think I would have expected him to. And I think going into free agency, he's a little bit better, because even though he's more injured, it feels like he has less wear and tear.
Right.
You're looking at Rashad Penny. He's like, oh, he's only played a couple games. He averaged over 6 yards per carry this year. He's like a young player. You look at, us Dynasty players like, oh, Sony's old, but Penny's still a young guy with some potential, right? And they're like the same age.
Yeah, right.
But, as much as we think that, it's almost kind of true based on, what we see on the field. So.
Okay. Yeah, that was my thinking with Penny was definitely the most interesting because he didn't just, play well. He was killing it. I just pulled it up 16, 137, 2, 17, 135, 1, 25, 170 and 2 in week 17. I actually won a championship on a 6th seed on the back of Rashad Penny and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we're going to talk about in a bit. But yeah, and he had one clunker in there where he didn't do much. But if he could stay healthy, and I just think it's going to, this end of season run, maybe it gets Seattle to re-sign him. I mean, who knows what's going on with Carson's neck? That might be best for him, if assuming Russ stays and Pete Carroll stays, because we know Pete Carroll likes to run the ball. I guess if Russ stays, maybe they won't be running as much because we let Russ cook. But yeah, and then Singletary, I think, is interesting only if they don't draft it back.
I think they're gonna draft or sign. They're gonna sign someone because I think that's gonna be where they struggle again this year in the playoffs. Is the consistent running game to be able to really help out Josh Allen, and I mean, I think. Listen, I don't think any of these guys should be your lead back on an NFL team. And I don't think any of these guys are going to get that opportunity, to be honest with you. I mean, there aren't that many guys as it is. So, that have the 70, 80+% workloads at this point. But I don't really want any of these guys on my team. However, there is always the value conversation. I mean, what can you really get? Rashad Penny, it looks like a mid-second is about
that's
all
what I was
you can
going to
get
ask.
at this point.
Are you taking any second for any one of these guys, Scott?
I mean, I probably am, but I mean, it really depends. I mean, would I hang on to Penny? If I'm a competitive team and I think I can compete next year and contend, then maybe I just hang on to him for that mid-second. But most likely, or in a vacuum, just give me a second for any one of these guys, and it's done. They're gone.
Yeah, I would need to get up to that mid-range. I think I might hold at least on Singletary, but definitely Penny for a mid-second and just see what happens. If you're going to give me like 211, Calvin and Hobby in the chat says Seattle definitely bringing in competition, though, right? You guys, you think they bring someone in?
I think they're a team like the Bills that could draft somebody. I mean, and there are a couple free agents out there. I don't really know too many of them off the top of my head outside like Penny and Michelle. But, I think there's a lot of depth this year in the draft. I don't think there's a lot of top guys, but I think there's a lot of good depth. So I think they'll bring someone in, but if they bring in someone at the 4th or 5th round, it's not a big deal. It's kind of open competition at that point. No one has the lead. So I think if Penny stays, then Penny has a great shot at the one job there. But if he doesn't, then it's all up about what Chris Carson can do, and I don't know when we're gonna know what that looks like.
So Cal, I have Penny in the league we're in together, and it looks like you have the 204. So you want to send me the 204 for Penny right now? I'll do the deal.
I think he was saying he's absolutely taking it to this album. Yeah.
Damn it. Cal's smart.
But our next guy on the list was we're going to the quarterback position, and it's not like this one came out of nowhere like some of the running backs, but Joe Burrow. I looked up these last 4 weeks. I looked at the prior 13 weeks, and Joe Burrow was QB 13, prior to week 14. So, good, not great. And now everybody's kind of vaulting him into this sort of like Herbert range because of those last 2 games to me. So I wanted to see if you guys agree with that, because I don't know if I'm quite there yet. I mean, it was awesome 2 games, but that's basically kind of that range is where, prior to these last 4 weeks, that's where he's been since he came into the league pretty much. I mean, he didn't, he would look good, but in those first 8 games, I don't think he was like QB6 or anything. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But that's kind of where he was, I think, last year, low end QB1, high end QB2, which is great for a rookie, but I'm not ready to call him, put him in that top 6 or 7, which I think some people are. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I think it's I really like Joe Burrow, and I've always liked him. He was my number one quarterback, and I think like a lot of people coming out of that draft class. And Herbert has been incredible, and it's hard to say that Burrow's in Herbert's level, but I think it's closer than a lot of people want to give him credit for. I think Joe Burrow is a great quarterback who has a little bit of rushing upside, probably a little bit less now after the ACL injury, but with the wide receiver weapons he has, I think he has a better offense to work with than Herbert does at the moment, especially going forward. Mike Williams is a free agent, and Keenan Allen's, struggled with some injuries and just hasn't looked as dominant. So, Joe Burrow, he's got Chase, he's got T. Higgins, he's got two of the best young wide receivers in the game, and a team that looks like they're going to try to build around him. So I think Joe Burrow is pretty close to Herbert in dynasty ranking for me. Not quite up there into that top 5 probably, but I'm willing to take him on the hype.
Yeah, and I was looking up while you were talking. I pulled up the December Superflex DLF ADP, which is a few weeks old at this point, but he's actually QB7, and it's kind of hard to put anyone below. Now that I'm looking at it, anyone below him, above him at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He's behind Mahomes, Kyler, Lamar, Allen, Herbert, and Dak.
Okay.
Is there anybody else, Scott, you would put above Burrow at this point? I can give you some of the names listed below him.
If give it to us.
Yeah, who's the next 3 or 4?
Burrow or Lawrence?
Burrow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely Burrow. Stafford.
Burrow.
Wilson.
Burrow.
Hurts.
Burrow by 1,000 miles.
When you say Hurts, if you knew he was the QB for the next 3 years.
Burrow.
For 3 years?
Just sorry, it's a lot.
If you knew that, if it was
3 years, I would take Hurts because
I would take Hurts.
I don't think he's a great quarterback, but the fantasy wise,
yes,
I mean you gotta take that.
Yes.
And then it gets to some of the rookies. Lance.
I might take Trey Lance. Be pretty close.
Burrow, but I do love Lance, but Burrow.
And this one's actually a little lower than a couple other guys, but Rodgers.
Yeah,
I take Burrow. I think he can give you pretty similar production and have a lot,
and
lot
then
longer
just
shelf
age,
life.
right? Yeah.
And then the other 2 that I didn't mention that are above Rodgers are Mac Jones, which is that's not even close to me, and Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think the only 2 for me that I could put, could argue with Burrow is Fields and Lance, but that's going to be more of an upside pick rather than what I know they can do at the next level, because we've seen Burrow do it now, and we haven't seen Fields or Lance do it yet.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So maybe I am higher than him than I thought, but because it really is hard to put too many guys above him after that top 6, which I think that top 6 is pretty much set in stone for the majority of dynasty.
I think something we learned this year is that quarterback is not nearly as deep as we thought it was.
Yeah, it's a transition period, right? Because those old guys are finally dropping off, and the young guys really didn't have the success that we anticipated. I mean, there was a lot of hype on this quarterback class, and there's certainly a lot of potential and upside, but they didn't really hit yet. So for various reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, will that happen? Or if it doesn't, you're right. It's looking real thin.
Yep.
And Scott, you provided me a nice segue there, because one guy I did want to ask about, even though he did not have a great last 4 weeks, but he was a borderline QB1 and probably the best rookie in this class. Which is not, I did not put on the sheet, so I'm giving you the guys, surprising you guys with this. But I was just looking at it, and Davis Mills is a guy that, I have no idea what's going to
bring him up.
Yeah. So, and he literally probably on a per game basis in terms of efficiency stats and things like that has probably been better than any of the other 5 guys that we all talk about. Other than maybe in some categories, Mac, did okay. So. What do you guys do? I like I said, I don't even know what to do. I actually did trade him in a league today, which we can get to that.
What'd you get?
I didn't. It wasn't just Mills. It was. They actually tried to give me an offer for just Mills, which was like Dawson Knox in a third, which I did not want to do.
Take it. I'd take it.
Well, what I ended up doing was Waller and Mills for Hawk Gage in a third.
Oh wow! Come on.
What does that come on? Is that a good come on? Or
That's amazing. Yes. Okay. Are you kidding me? Get rid of Waller now. Jeez.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was in the playoffs in that league, but not one of the real contenders. So I liked getting a little younger. I liked getting something for Mills. I'm not sure about Gage, but there's rumors Ridley could be moving on. So what the heck? Throw him in there, and I mainly just wanted to get Hawk out of the deal because we all know how much of a Hawk stan I am. So, but Nate, what are your thoughts on Mills? Do you think there's a chance he's a starter next year?
I do. I think he's the starter next year. I love Davis Mills. It's just like a recent thing. I've just loved him now. I think if he had any better draft capital on any other team than the Texans, we'd be talking all about him. I don't think this is like quite a Gardner Minshew situation. I think he's a little bit better. And,
hey,
I think
don't insult the stash.
Hey, I love Minshew. I'm all about it. But I think Mills is the starter next year. I think they used their top pick to get a defensive player to build the team around whatever the future quarterback is. I don't think Mills is the future franchise quarterback unless he has an incredible year next year. But I do think he starts next year. He might have a second or third round quarterback to deal with. And that might ultimately, be his demise after the next year. But I think he starts next year. I think he's going to do decent. I just pulled up some numbers on Player Profiler. We know he was not in a good situation. They have his game script rate as, playing from behind or playing with a lead at the 25th worst in the league. Looking at receiver yards after catch per target, his receivers averaged number 71 in the league on yards after catch per target. I mean, it's just not looking good for his team. Yet I'm looking here and he's got 23 money throws, which apparently require exceptional skill or athleticism in clutch moments. And it's number 18 in the league. That's not incredible, but for a guy that didn't play all the games, number 18 in the league is pretty good for a quarterback like that. Deep ball completion percentage, 44.2%, fourth in the league. I mean, when he's in a clean pocket, apparently 73.2% completion percentage, number 7 in the league. Those are some great numbers. If he had a team around him, it looks like he could do something. When you're playing with Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins, who I like both those wide receivers, but that is literally all that's on your offense. It's incredible he did as well as he did.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I don't know what to do with him. I was willing to move on from him just because I'm a little nervous. I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I do think there's a chance, excuse me, if they trade Watson, that they get a quarterback back in that deal, which also worries me a little bit. But Scott, sounds like you're maybe more agreeing with what I'm saying than what Nate was saying.
Yeah, I mean, he is my most rostered quarterback across
Mills?
all my leagues. He's at my cap of 25%. And I have a ton of Davis Mills because it just frankly looked like there was opportunity for him this year. And so when it was the 3rd or the 4th round, and I'm like, this guy could start games. Like, yeah, I'll take him and we'll see what happens. Right. He far surpassed any expectations I had for him. And mostly because I thought they hired a terrible coach and the guy actually did an amazing job with what he had.
I was surprised he got fired.
I mean, I can't believe they were as competitive as they were and won so many. I mean, I honestly thought they could compete for 0-17, like that they would really go down that path because that roster is devoid of talent big time. They have the oldest running back core in the league by like 12 years. I mean, it's insane. And literally no one to throw to. And they just
re-signed Rex.
Like who are they throwing to? I mean, seriously, Cooks is so underrated always, but he's just one guy, So it's fascinating that he did what he did in that situation, and it shows you the potential he has. But the issue I have is the organization, right? We just have no idea. So I will definitely be selling some shares just to kind of take my profits essentially. And then, for my portfolio, I'll have my profit and I'll let the rest, ride out. And, if he comes through, great. And if not, I'll have already taken my profits. But it's hard right now because no one's going to give you a first. And if you take a second in this draft class, there's a lot of guys right now that are pretty much the same for me or kind of in the same tier. So it's kind of like, and not quarterbacks. So I'm not going to replace him with something else. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough right now, but maybe we'll wait for some more clarity, or at least see who the new coach is, see if there's any hype around that. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to divest some shares, but at the same time, I think he's a guy that can definitely stick around.
Yeah, and to your point about the coaching, it's going to be interesting too. I mean, we don't know that they're going to play like they could be that 0-17 team next year. I mean, I don't know that they're going to upgrade significantly. I mean, I guess if they can get like a bunch of first round picks in 22 for Watson, then maybe they can improve that team. But they have so much work to do. They don't know this team's going to be much better, and if they don't have. Maybe the next guy doesn't get the team to play the way Culley did. I mean, no one. I had no expectations of David Culley, but like you said, he seemed to kill it. Like he's they were only like 4-12, but I didn't expect them to win 4 games. So yeah. So
and well, like, even just be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, and then even in the games they were losing, like
right.
This last week, they almost knocked the Titans out of the #1 seed because the Danny Amendola went for 172 or whatever it was, thanks to Davis Mills, I guess. So
yeah,
and it's like you said too, no one's giving it first. That's why I kind of wanted. That's why I didn't want to do a trade just for Davis Mills. I kind of liked it better trying to do the idea of adding value to Waller.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So I
or
think that might be the
package a second, Mills in a second for a first.
Yeah, something.
I'd love to do that type of deal. Mills in a mid second for a late first, something like that. I'd be into very much.
Okay, and so the next guy is one that definitely came on late, maybe before these final 4 weeks, but he definitely shone during this playoff time, which was, I feel like everybody's talking about him right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I when this was all happening, I was definitely kind of like during the season, like sell. But the more I think about it, I don't hate at least holding Amon-Ra St. Brown, because what he's done has been ridiculous. Like I have him up on my screen. It's 8 for 9. Yeah, he's got a touchdown like every game. He's getting target upon target. And I know Hawk's not there. I know other Swift's not there, but he's killing it every game, especially in terms of fantasy points. He went 24.8, 15.3, 23.5, and in week 17, 35.4, 8, 1, 11, 1, and a rushing touchdown. That's the other thing too. They were using him out of the backfield, and I don't expect this. Nobody expects this, but if you're selling, or you're not, no one's trying to get that production from him. So I would think I would rather hold and see if he can be a wide receiver 2 for me. If anybody else had done, like, there's guys we value way more than him that have never done this. Like Jerry Judy has never done, who I'm going to talk about a little later when we get to my family trade, but he's never had, he hasn't had very many games like this, let alone a 5 or 6 game stretch. I kind of am warming up to the idea of it. I don't know if I want to buy him, because most people are going to want it first at this point, and I don't know if I want to pay first for a wide receiver. I don't see him being more than a wide receiver 2. We all expect they're going to bring somebody in, but there's also the idea, of Hawk and Swift and even another wide receiver make the offense better. Again, he's not going to do that. What he's done the last 5 or 6 weeks has been like Devontae Adams. He's not going to be that, but I think he's going to be maybe better than people think going forward. So Nate, I seen you, nodding some and making some looks here. So what do you think? Am I totally off base, or is there maybe some truth in there?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I personally wasn't a huge Amon-Ra St. Brown fan coming out of the draft. I'm coming out of college. I just thought he was an average player overall. I don't think he did anything elite in his prospect profile. And then the 4th round draft capital didn't get me excited. This is a guy that I'm not buying the hype. I will be the first to admit I was wrong if he goes off next year, but he's kind of giving me not the same play style, but kind of same situation, Darius Slayton vibes, where he's kind of that rookie wide receiver who's not going to have the same kind of volume next year and not going to have the same production. We got excited over some touchdowns. He had some good yardage, of course, some good usage, but I don't see this continuing. Like you said, Hawk's going to come back. Swift's going to be in full usage, and they're probably going to bring somebody in. I just don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be the 1 in that offense. I don't think he's going to be the 2 in that offense. He might not even be the 3 once they're full force. So not a guy that I'm really focusing on.
I don't disagree with everything you said there, even though I like him more than you do. I mean, the thing I'm thinking is like, there's other guys who've had opportunities that don't take it. Like Jerry Judy got all last year without Cortland Sutton. He had a trash quarterback, but Amon-Ra St. Brown has done some of this with Tim Boyle. So, I mean, and that's kind of the excuse we use for Hawk. At least I did, and other people who were supporters of Hawk is, he's the only threat they have in the passing game. It's, that's why he can't, everyone's focusing the defensive attention on him. And you have to think they were doing that with Amon-Ra St. Brown too, especially with no Hawk and Swift. So I think it's kind of like there's two sides to it. Like he should have been getting all the defensive coverage with Boyle and Goff throwing to him, and he still produced. He got a ton of targets, but which he won't get going forward. And like I said, I do not expect this. That's what I'm saying. I would give up a high second for him. I would not give up a first. But anyway, Scott, I guess you need to chime in here since me and Nader disagree.
No, I really don't. I mean, listen, I don't
disagree with me. Scott never agrees with me.
I actually like Dan Campbell. And I mean, if he's going to keep calling plays and doing what he does, I mean, listen, it's either going to be Goff or better, right? Maybe they sign someone, probably not, because what they're paying Goff. Maybe they draft someone, right? And then he becomes more of a bridge, and then there's some opportunity there for an even better quarterback. So I think his volume goes down, but he probably keeps or increases his efficiency. And I mean, I think he's going to be a nice receiver here for the next few years. I am not buying him for I'm just not buying him. I mean, whatever he costs right now, it's just too much. I mean, this is a sell window for sure.
I don't think anyone's paying a first for him if you're selling.
I don't know.
They are.
Yeah, they're paying.
I haven't seen a lot of Amon-Ra trades go down in my league, so I guess I can't speak.
I'm seeing people say that he's the rookie wide receiver 3 of this past class. I mean, it's hype out there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty wild.
He's going pretty high up in startups too, I've heard.
I would sell him for a first. I will say that, but I would
how about
I would pay the 201, 202 for him.
Here's a couple of straight ups: Amon-Ra or Ayuk.
Ayuk by far.
Amon-Ra or DJ Moore.
DJ Moore by far.
Okay, well, those literally happened within the last week, straight up Superflex league. So
yep.
Ayuk's not by far for me, but I think you probably got to go Ayuk there too.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, it's I can't pay these prices, obviously. It's hard to maintain unless you're truly that stud X receiver that's going to get the volume and the targets every week, or your Cooper Kupp. But it's a sell window for me. But also, if I have a young team, like I think I have him in it might be Trade Addicts 5, or one of these rebuilds I took over recently. I have him, and I'll probably just roll with him because I mean I like him, and I think he has plenty of opportunity. But unless somebody's going to blow me away with an offer, cool. But definitely not buying him, and same for Hunter Renfrow too. Like again, another.
I was just going to say that it's kind of similar. He's
slot guy.
Produced when the
really
tight end
like
went
him.
out.
Really like him. But again, it's I like the opportunity for a new quarterback, but also a new quarterback's actually going to be good, most likely, whereas Derek Carr is not. And although he's kind of proven me wrong this year, he's having a good year. He's having a good year.
He's a good quarterback.
I'll give him credit. He's
not a great fantasy quarterback, but he's a good quarterback.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, he's all right. He's all right. But okay, if they bring in somebody, I mean, it's Vegas, man. They want to bring somebody in, right? And
you think they're going to bring somebody in after Carr took them to the playoffs?
Dude, new coaching staff. Oh, John Gruden is the last guy in the world that loves him some Derek Carr. So
probably true.
Yeah, he's got 1 year left max. So we'll see. But there's too much other stuff going on there. I don't know what to do with that roster right now. It's really going to depend on who comes in as the coach and the OC and all that. So again, not buying, definitely selling if it's a top pick or even a proven vet. But otherwise, not buying.
Yeah, I like you said, I think Renfro is pretty similar to the whole Amon-Ra thing. I actually did sell him for the 201, so maybe a little bit of a hypocrite since they're very similar situations. But that's right around what I said for Amon-Ra, late first. I guess I just the upside with the rookie, I have a little more hesitation to give away until I see him a little more. But I mean, you can make a lot of the same arguments against Renfro or against Amon-Ra that you can against Renfro with the whole, Waller was out and all that kind of stuff. Ruggs, what happened with him. So we'll move on to the couple tight ends we have here, and then we'll get to find me a trade. So
Let's do it.
Yep, tight end 4 over those last 4 weeks, and this is again another guy who produced before this, but he had I did this I pulled this from 1.5 tight end premium scoring. He had 2 20+ point games during the playoffs, and I think he's a little underrated. He was a tight end 1 in 2020, lower end tight end 1. And then with everyone back, including Dak, but also with all the receivers there for a lot of the year, he still was producing. I mean, he did better with Gallup out. But Dalton Schultz, I think he's going a little underrated. He's still pretty young. Nate, what are your thoughts on Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Dalton Schultz. I was a big fan of Blake Jarwin, and that train, really screwed me 2 years in a row. So I'm all over Dalton Schultz now. The targets are there. I do believe he's a free agent though, so I think that's definitely something to watch. If he stays, I'm all about it. If he goes, then who knows? He fills that position. Maybe they draft somebody. I wouldn't mind seeing Jalen Weidemeyer, one of the tight end prospects in this class, going there, staying in Texas. I think that'd be a great fit for him.
Speaking of, I have him in our C2C league.
Yeah, he's great. I'd love for him to stay in Texas. I think he just fit that team very well. I think as long as Dalton Schultz is there, I'm buying because he was second in targets for the Cowboys over the last couple of weeks over CeeDee Lamb, only behind Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup's gone. So I don't think Cedric Wilson or anyone else they bring in is going to, be a dominant 3. So Dalton Schultz is going to be one of those top targets still, if he's there.
Yeah, and I did not realize that he's an unrestricted free agent next year. And they do have Blake Jarwin, who they extended prior to him getting hurt, and that runs through at least next year, I believe. So that'll be interesting. I agree with you. Definitely if he's there. I think Dak really kind of favors the tight end. We saw him make I think a tight end 12 out of, or 11, something like that, out of the corpse of Jason Witten after he came out of the Monday Night Football booth. So Dak seems to like to look to the tight end, even with all those other weapons he has. So Scott, with you, I'll just go to the last guy we had, and again, he didn't explode in the playoffs, but I was looking at the list of tight ends, and he was like between 13 and 18 points in premium every week during that 14 to 17 period. But he's very, very old from a dynasty perspective. And I'm wondering, I'm not sure do you have any interest in Zach Ertz going forward? He's going to be, I believe he's going to be a free agent as well. I'm not positive about that, but assuming he stays in Arizona. With Kyler.
He is an unrestricted free agent. His contract was basically, when he went to Arizona, they nullified the last couple of years of that deal. So yeah, he'll be a free agent. Arizona makes sense for him to stick around, and there's probably some opportunity there with Christian Kirk likely leaving. Hopkins is aging. AJ Green's probably gone, or maybe sticks around for cheap. But yeah, there's opportunity. I like him. If I have a contender, I'm cool with riding with him. One of my strategies with tight ends is I like to have that stud, like Hawkinson, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to have a veteran that I can drop in and produce at any time if there's an injury, and Ertz fits that role greatly. And then I like to have that young. A couple of young guys that could blow up, but Ertz fits that veteran profile for me. Did really well in the leagues I had him in that role, and I will continue to do so. Again, not buying him, but on contenders, happy to hold. John McGlynn just said he got Ertz and Rojo for the 208.
That's pretty good.
And that's fine. I don't like Rojo, but
And
at the
then
same
flip
time,
Rojo, yes.
what are you going to get with the 208? So
When he signed somewhere.
I think Rojo's a free agent, right?
Free agent, yeah. So
Yeah.
he signs somebody with a decent role, then you flip him.
Yep.
that's a value trade, because either of those guys sign to a spot where they could have a role or some hype. You can get
the 208 back,
the 208 plus for just one of them, right? And then you get a free guy. So yeah, I like it.
And Dave in the chat mentioned I typically don't trade for most tight ends as the main piece, especially this kind of level of tight end. It's kind of like what we said about Davis Mills.
Totally agree, Dave.
Yeah, have him thrown in as a part of a package if you're trying to acquire him rather than trading for Zach Ertz. Okay, any thoughts on Ertz, Nate, before we move on?
Not too much more than what Scott said. I think, as long as he's in Arizona, I'm pretty happy with him.
Yep, and that's where I'm at. So, and you can probably get them pretty cheap. A lot of, especially I know a lot of ageist dynasty managers out there. So, I'm sure many of them would be looking to get out from under him if they happen to get him for a title run or something like that. So you can probably get them pretty cheap. I would imagine it wouldn't take much more than a late second if you did want to just trade for Ertz instead of throwing him in a package. But we will get to our Find Me a Trade. This week it was submitted by Noah on Twitter at ArcmanNoah. It's a 10-team PPR Superflex League. No tight end premium in this one. 30-man rosters. They start 14, but 2 of them are kicker and defense. So really they start 12.
No premium? Oh, I'm an idiot. Okay.
You made a trade with a premium involved?
Yep, sure did.
I just saw your trade.
Let me go to my backup.
That guy. So,
let me go to my backup.
Okay. Anyway, so start 14, like I said, it's kicker and defense, and then there's a QB, 2 running backs. They have to start 4 wide receivers, which is interesting. I've rarely seen 4 wide receivers starting. Tight end, the kicker and D, super flex, and 3 flex. But they also have this weird thing where they have caps on the flexes. You can't start more than 4 running backs. I don't
understand why you have the flexes if you can't use them. What is the point?
Yeah, you can't start more than 4 running backs. You can't start more than 6 wide receivers.
What?
You can't start more than 2 tight ends. So it's got to be a certain mix. This also happened to be an all-play league. I don't know how much that factors into a trade, but it was not a head-to-head league.
Well,
so.
It does a little bit, actually, for me.
Okay. Well, why don't you get into the roster, and then we can get into our trades. And if you want to go last, so you can work on your backup plan there.
No, I have it. I'll just say what it is. But okay, here's the roster. Good, nice quarterback room with Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, 2 studs there. He has Davis Mills, a guy we've talked about tonight. Tua, the lefty who's going on his 4th coordinator in 4 years, so he's statistically screwed. And then Mitchell Trubisky, who, when Brian Dable gets hired in Chicago, will bring Mitch to teach the system to Fields, and then Fields will get hurt, and then Mitch will be the savior of the franchise in Chicago. Yes. But anyway, great quarterback room there. I like that. You have 2 studs, and and then Tua as well, and then Mills, the potential guy, and Mitch, who might get another shot. So great quarterback room. Love that. Tight end wise, Goddard, Albert Okwuegbunam, Donald Parham. That's about it. So the tight end room is a little weak, but now that I realize it's not tight end premium, and that's why I talk about the tight end group second in tight end premium. I normally go look at my quarterbacks and tight ends, and now that I know it's not a tight end premium, reading comprehension is key. Like I was talking about on the listener
reading is hard
timeline last night. I'm the dumbass tonight, so cool. That full circle, baby. Okay, running back room. We've got Chase Edmonds, Deontay Foreman, Jordan Howard, Kareem Hunt, Jarrett Patterson, Tony Pollard. Anyone of note on IR? Kenyon Drake, Darrington Evans, James White, Kylan Hill. Overall, just kind of a bunch of guys. Guys that could get a start for you here and there. Certainly
roster cloggers. That's what they are.
I mean, they're guys that you could plug in at some point, and they, likely got you some points. But at the end of the day,
Foreman had his moments this year.
Yeah, no difference makers though, and in a 10-team league, you need difference makers, and also because of the all play. So we'll get to that in a second. Wide receiver room: Brandon Ayuk, Marquez Callaway, the man Jamar Chase, Corey Davis, Tyler Johnson, DK Metcalf, Jacoby Myers, DJ Moore, KJ Osborne, Jalen Rager, LaVisca Chenault, KJ Hamler, Rondale Moore. And so obviously he's put his capital into the wide receiver group, which makes me feel much better about the running back group. But just going to the all play for me is I think you have to think about having that high floor with your core of guys. For me, this would be my strategy, is having a high floor, and you have that with your 2 stud quarterbacks, right? And then I want some home run hitters. I want some guys that can just go off week to week, especially with all those starters that you have. I mean, there's going to be so much variance. Again, I don't understand the whole flex thing when you have flex, but you can't really use them as flex. So I guess I'm a little confused on that part of it. But having those wide receivers that can go off at any time, I like the roster build that he currently has very much. So it's really just about tweaking a few things for me. So Rocky, why don't you tell us what you have?
Okay, as I didn't know if you wanted to go right into yours or okay. So mine, and we kind of all did similar thing. I don't know what your backup one is, but on your original one, I feel like we all kind of we're looking to kind of use that quarterback room and the depth he had there. I agree with you. He has, the 2 studs that he's pretty much going to start every week as long as they're healthy. And then he has 2 other potential starters in Tua and Mills, as we talked about Mills earlier. And I don't think it's out of the question that Trubisky maybe goes somewhere, at least as a bridge quarterback or something next year for somebody. So he could potentially have 5 starters. So I was looking to trade one of the quarterbacks to get him. He does need some depth. I do think, even though it's only 10 team with 12 offensive starters, I do still think he needs some depth. He mentioned wide receivers. I didn't get to that in his little write-up. He said he placed 3rd in the playoffs this year, but I'm not sure I'm a real contender now. And he's probably right, because he finished decently under 500 in all-play record, but 6 teams make the playoffs.
But Lamar was hurt, though, too. So
that's true. He said we start 12 skill positions. So I want to improve depth, and then I obviously need RBs, but want to make sure I'm good on wide receivers too. So I actually I was more looking. I ended up trading for a running back and a receiver, but I was more looking for running backs because, like we talked about, his running backs are pretty bad. But I think this is a team that could contend going for. I love the wide receivers. I really like the quarterbacks. I'm fine with Goddard at tight end in a non-premium. I'm especially not prioritizing it as much. So I did 2 to dead presidents for Josh Jacobs and Cortland Sutton. And like I said, the decent depth at QB. Jacobs still only 23 years old, even though it seems like he's been in the league forever. And I think he's gone from kind of overrated to underrated. I mean, he's produced double digits in almost every game this year, with some upside games, a few 20-point games here and there. He's getting the ball more in the passing game too. He had over 50 catches this year, which was easily his career high. So I like getting Jacobs and Sutton, kind of a low point a little bit for maybe not as much for Jacobs, but definitely Sutton. I have this thing where I don't get the Jerry Judy love, which I wanted to go on a little side rant here because everyone treats Jerry Judy like he's this surefire wide receiver one, and I kept hearing this narrative. I've heard it many times that Judy came back and took all the targets from Sutton. So I looked it up today, and 6 of the 11 games they played together, Sutton had the same or more targets. So obviously he didn't produce as well, but Judy didn't produce either. So to me, the difference in price between the two is ridiculous. So I love getting Sutton low. I know Sutton's a little older than Judy is, but I just don't buy the Judy hype. And I think if a quarterback comes in there, they both are dealing with the trash quarterback, so neither has produced well. But Sutton's had more highs than Judy has had.
Judy didn't score a touchdown, did he?
No, Judy not scored. Sutton only had 2.
But I mean,
Judy had 0 touchdowns this entire year.
Judy might as well be Galladay at this point. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, people. Don't at me. Jesus
also,
Christ.
Sutton had 3 20-point games this year. Judy did not have a game over 13.2 with the same.
Okay.
They both had the same. And I know Sutton did a lot of that with Judy out, but Judy, I think I looked this up before too, has had like 2 20-point games in his career. So, and Sutton had 3 earlier this year, but Judy, even last year with no Sutton for most of the year.
Yep.
Yeah. So
all of the year.
yeah. So like I said, most of that is just to point out, well, A, that I'm sick of the Judy hype. And B, just the disparity in price between, like, Sutton is basically worth like a late second right now. That's what how I was valuing that in this trade. And I think the especially if a Rodgers or somebody goes there, that's going to lift both of them. And I think it may even help Sutton more. Like, I think Judy has produced a little better this year because he is a better separator than Sutton is. And Teddy definitely wants to make sure the guy's open before he throws it to him, whereas Rodgers or somebody, a better quarterback, might be willing to fit it into tight spaces and give Sutton some 50-50 balls. So I like getting both of them. Adds them, especially on this team. Sutton's like his fifth wide receiver or something like that. Yep. He's got Chase and all those other guys. So he can also get more depth. He's got 2 firsts, so he can also get some more depth there. Probably in wide receivers as well in the draft, just given kind of where this, I think both of them are late. When I looked at it, it looked like both of them are in the 7 to 10 range, because the last pick is 10. So I think, so it's Tua for Jacobs and Sutton. I like it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that works. I think you're right. You got to get some RB depth. I think Jacobs is a good buy low, and Sutton, same thing. Good buy low, good value play.
Scott, any problems?
Totally agree. 2 guys that I would definitely like to buy this non-point scoring season. Sutton's a guy I love coming in, so all about him. And obviously that's banking on them getting a quarterback, and then Jacobs too. Now where Gruden's gone, and so let's see what they do. Will they let him kind of do some more of what he was supposed to be doing with the passing game and all that? But yeah, love it. I'm very much in on that.
Yeah, and I often like to look at it from the other side too. And QB scarcity isn't a big issue, as big an issue in a 10-team league. But this is like one of the only guys in the league who does not have a good quarterback situation. Yes. He's got Mahomes, but then he's got Baker who stinks. And yikes. I think his third quarterback was like Jacob Eason or something. So it might make sense for him. And he was like third from last, so he might be a little more fine. Even Jacobs, as I mentioned, is only 23, but kind of I think has this perception as of an older running back because his contract's about to come up soon. So he might be more okay moving on from a running back than a lot of other teams, and he needs another quarterback, unlike most of the teams in this league. So Nate, you want to get into yours?
Yeah, sure. So with mine, I kind of I was looking to trade Tua, and then I saw you put your trade up, and I was like, I got to go somewhere else. So I ended up going with something that is a bit more bold. This is, if he wants, want to go in for next year, I think this is a move you can make. I think in 10-team league, you don't need a super deep quarterback room. And I think you got Lamar Jackson. And I think you got guys after that, Tua and Mills, who are good enough next year to get you through. So I'm looking to move Dak because you need some running back help. You need some depth help. I think wide receivers is really good. I don't think you really need any more wide receivers, but to try to make this work, the trade I threw together was trading Dak Prescott and Laviska Shenault, because then you can get some good value out of him still, to reigning champs, who was the second team from the bottom, and trading Dak and Laviska for Stafford, David Montgomery, and OBJ or Allen Robinson. I will let Noah pick whichever one he wants. I think they're pretty similar value. So wherever he wants to float his boat. I think this downgrades you a little bit at quarterback and gives you some options to play with for the rest of the offseason. I didn't want to trade away Dak without getting a quarterback back, just because there's a lot of offseason to go. If you can trade Tua in a separate trade and then sit there with Lamar Jackson and Stafford with Davis Mills as your third, I think you'd be in great position. So this is kind of a trade that's going to set up another trade. But I think, downgraded from Dak and then getting David Montgomery, who at this point is going to be your running back 1. It's a pretty solid guy. I think it's another value play, similar to Josh Jacobs. And then OBJ or Allen Robinson, not great dynasty pieces long-term, but either one of them should produce next year if you want to go ahead and look for the, contending team. So in my ideal world, I would make this trade. I would then also try to trade Tua in a separate deal. Maybe I go after Josh Jacobs and Cortland Sutton. And if you could make both those trades, you'd be sitting in a nice spot with Lamar and Stafford as your quarterback. You'd have RB depth. You'd have plenty of wide receiver depth. And then with 2 first-round picks, I am using both those 2 first-round picks on running backs no matter what. Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, whatever. You have plenty of wide receiver depth. Just grab the running backs and see what happens.
Yeah, from a philosophical standpoint, I completely agree with that. I think it's interesting that we were all on the same page as far as moving Tua, right? That was my first thought. It was the first thing I wrote down. So yeah, I love that. Overall, when you have the quarterbacks, that's what can control it for you in Superflex. And so giving yourself that opportunity to make those moves. And then I love building a team around quarterbacks and tight ends and tight end premium, and of course the wide receivers. And then just like you said, when I'm ready to contend, draft those running backs, drop them in, and let's roll. I think with this particular league, again, the flexes start 14 is pretty wild. There's just so much depth. So you also have to have the depth, whereas maybe it's not as important in other leagues, but maybe because it's only a 10 team, it evens out at the end of the day. So initially my trade was to move, and this depends a little bit. The team name Tyler, he owns Ezekiel Elliott, and his running back room is very, very old. And so if he's a handcuff guy, or even if he's looking for a guy with some juice, try to move Pollard to that team for Hawkinson. And so whatever you need to throw in there, if you finish third and you have a late second, that's probably not going to work, but you could move one of those first. So again, if it was tight end premium, I would definitely make a move like that. Without it being tight end premium, the other move I looked at was the same team, actually, Tyler, and trading Pollard to him plus a second for Marquise Brown. And the thinking there is just continue with those wide receivers, and you're going to start whatever the max you can start every week. I believe it's 6. Yeah. So you're going to start your 6 wide receivers every week. You're really going to bank on those 2 quarterbacks, having 2 studs, and then that all play, right? You're trying to get those high weeks. You're trying to get those wins. And by having that variance of the high floor, but then also getting those high ceiling plays with Brown stacked with Lamar Jackson, to me, I think that's an opportunity there where you can add the ceiling to your team as well.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I think Pollard is another guy to me who gets way more love than I think he deserves. He's a nice player, but I don't think he's ever going to be leading anyone's backfield. So I like moving on from him. And I do like Hollywood. He kind of faded a little bit down the stretch, but he also didn't have Lamar for a lot of that. And we saw him for over a year kind of producing at a steady basis in that offense. Bateman will cut into that, and I like the idea of building up the receivers. And as I mentioned, he has and you said too, he has those first round picks, so could potentially get at least one of the. I think one of them looked like it might be 10. I mean, it's hard to tell because I don't know how the playoffs went and all that kind of stuff, but it looked like 107-ish. I think I was thinking his was probably around 107-ish, 108-ish because he finished third, he said, or something. So, and the other one was by the guy who had the best record. I don't know if he won the whole thing though. So, but maybe he could package those for a running back, or
Pollard's a free agent too. So,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And if he goes somewhere else, he's going to another committee. So,
yeah.
So he could possibly get the running backs with those draft picks too if he wants to bolster the running back room. Just depending on how the draft falls, it is super flex, and like I said, since it's a 10-team league, there's only 10 picks. So I'm not up on the drafts enough to know where the running backs might fall in comparison to the quarterbacks, in comparison to the wide receivers. But maybe he could use those picks to help bolster the running back room after he does. For sure. This. Okay, so that pretty much finishes up. We
did it.
Almost pretty much did it. Yeah, we're only at about 109 right now. So that's like a half an hour for most other podcasts. For we go 109. So
people are going to be confused. They're going to think it got cut off, or
I know they're going to think this is like part 1 of the episode. But I just want to thank Nate for coming on. Nate, why don't you just tell everybody, where they can find your stuff, your Twitter handle, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Nate NFL on Twitter. I do a lot of work for Dynasty Rewind. That's our pride and joy over there. The guys over there do a great job. We're releasing content on YouTube every single day. The YouTube channel's blowing up. Plus, we have the Tuesday night podcast that we release on Wednesday morning. So plenty of content over there. We also have a nice Patreon where you can do a $1 group chat or $5 to get into the Debbie dashboard and some other things. We have a whole dashboard with dynasty rankings and rookie rankings and Debbie stuff. So more than welcome to come join me over there. I know Scott's already over there. He enjoys it. So got all that stuff. Also for this offseason, I am back again writing for Dynasty Owner, which is a really cool platform. It's all about like salary cap management using real contracts. It's really interesting. I actually won my Dynasty Owner League this year, so super excited about that. That was like one of the big challenges for the year. So I'm over there writing rookie content for them because that's what I love to do. Rookie content. Off season is my time to thrive. I know a lot of Dynasty people feel that same way, but the rookies are my blood and my lifeblood. So I'm excited for this time of the year. I'm excited to be on this podcast. I usually fill up my end of winter and spring with podcast appearances talking about rookies. So I'm excited to be able to actually be on and not talk about rookies, kind of talk about, what we did with this season. So that was nice. Because I'm sure from here on out, it's rookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we appreciate coming on. It was a really fun show. So we will finish up with some of our stuff here. I did want to mention, because John McGlynn pointed out in the chat that Pollard is not a free agent next year. He does have one more year. So
after next year,
he's a free agent. So finish up with some of our stuff. Make sure you're following us at I'm a Dynasty FF Addict. Scott's at Scott_Sidlow. Andrew, who's not here tonight, at Andrew Hall FF. And then follow the pod at Dynasty Junkies. We have to give way too many Twitter handles. DAP Network at DAP_Network. And make sure you subscribe to the DAP Network. Subscribe to the YouTube. You can see us when we go live. You can see timeline when it goes live. I think that's subscribe, rate, and review, because that's what we're supposed to tell you to do. And I think that's pretty much it. So Scott, why don't you take us out?
Want to shout out to all the homies in the chat tonight. Man, a lot of you. This was awesome. I guess this is what happens when there's not a game going on. People actually want to hang out. So that's pretty cool. Toronto Dave, you're the man. Love it. Jerry, Calvin, McGlynn, of course. All you guys, man. Love all your input. For Nate and Dynasty Rewind, for Rocky, for the DAP Network, I'm Scott Sidlow. Junkies out.